Okay, folks, we're going to just have a little backyard fun. I have an array of Elmsley typology swords here in front of me. We have a couple Messers over here, and we have several Falchions. These are from a range of makers, and we're just going to go out and do some subjective testings, see how they feel in the hand. And I have a whole bunch of cardboard that I'm going to just go and have some fun with and see how they perform kind of relative to one another. So we have a Messer from Eric Estlund. We have a Falchion from Eric Estlund. We have a Messer from Landsknecth Emporium. We have a Falchion from Massiege Kupcho. We have a Falchion from Sordier, and we have a Falchion from Todd Cutler. So, if the weather allows, let's go see how they do against some heavy-duty cardboard boxes. Okay, first we're going to have a duel of the Messers. We have the Ljubljana Messer from Eric Estlund in Winter Cutlery. Well, that performed more fiercely than I was expecting against the cardboard. We'll give it a stab. Let's see. Yeah, it went straight through. All right. So obviously this has tons of cutting potential. And even though it's short, it's got a lot of mass, and it feels very good in the hand, and it just wants to obliterate the target. I'll see if I can just kind of decapitate this thing. Let's see. Try a middle haul. Yep, pretty much just all the way through. It didn't quite make it at the very end, but pretty impressive. Flip this over and give a little room to the Messer from Ellie. So, compared to the last Messer, this one is longer, but slightly lighter, and because it has less mass in the hilt, it feels more blade heavy. So it can move from place to place faster, but it's slightly less maneuverable at the tip because more of the mass is distributed out in the blade relative to the total mass of the sword. Let's see if that makes a difference when we're doing our cuts. No, it seems to still cut very, very effectively. So this cardboard, I thought it was thicker than it is, but it looks like our swords are chopping through it pretty effectively. Once again, we cut almost all the way through. It looks like the blade actually scooted out just based on the direction of my cut. There we go. All right. We'll bisect it. Went pretty far down. We'll bring back the Ljubljana, see how far that goes. They both went pretty much exactly the same distance down. So a pretty impressive showing against this kind of funny target. So this is the, compact version of the Messer. It's smaller, but it's got more mass. It's stouter. Even though you have less length to be able to get at the other guy, you still have a lot of weight here to be able to ward off potentially a heavier weapon. So you could still combat something like a longer sword or maybe even a spear, even though you have slightly less reach, not significantly less reach. This one's longer, but it's because it's lighter. You're not feeling sluggish in the hand. Both of these are handsome. They both do a very good job. This one is obviously much more rustic in its finish. This one is a bespoke piece, so this is more like a piece of art, but it's a very deadly piece of art. Moving on to falchions. We're starting with a Type 1A falchion from the Art of Sword Making and Massiege Kupcho. The fittings are all very nice in the hand. The grip is very, very comfortable. The pommel feels really good. It's all nicely polished. The blade has been sharpened before it got to me, so I don't know what the original edge is. And it's quite forward weighted. I suspect that it's a little thicker than the original falchions would have been, especially in the foible. This for instance, does not have much flex at all. And original falchions should be pretty flexible out here, but let's see how it performs. Yep, obviously went through that pretty easily. So the strikes I'm giving are powerful enough that they're putting this cardboard to bed pretty quickly. I'll flip it around and chop it across the top if I can. I'm going to hit the wood if I'm not careful. Stand it up. Can it go across the top? No, couldn't quite go across the top. Still made a pretty good dent in it, but not quite. So we'll go down, cutting against the grain. Getting kind of weak now. Might have to switch to the other box. Let's see. That cut down pretty well. It's very slightly further than the Messers. So even though this is a shorter blade than the two Messers were, it's got a lot of mass in it, so it really wants to go. So it's very good at going down, not so good at redirecting and coming up. The mass of the pommel helps offset that a little bit, so it doesn't feel forward heavy, but it's still sluggish. So it's got a lot of mass here and a lot of mass there, and so it's not very maneuverable in the hand as a result. I suspect that with a bit more profiling and with more distal taper, this mass could come down, and then it would feel closer to original's feel and be a lot more lively in the hand and still be able to perform with a lot of authority. But still, it obviously packs quite a punch when you give it a big swing. Okay, I've got a new cardboard box, and we have a falchion from Sordier. So this comes in at less than $300, which never really thought would be possible to get a decently performing falchion for such a price. Can it actually perform, though? We shall see. Yep, that was a big chop. And you can see even with without putting all of my beans into it, it went and gave us as big a chop as the Messers, if not more. Let's see what type of a thrust it gives. Gives a pretty good thrust with that clip point. I neglected to thrust with the Type 1 falchion, but it's not really designed for it. It does have a sharp tip, so if I pushed hard, it would still go through, although not as acutely as this one. This is a longer sword than the Type 1, but it's balanced a little bit more maneuverably. It does have a lot of distal taper in the blade, and so while it does have a big pommel, it's a little bit better distributed. It doesn't have as much of what's called a polar moment. There's not this big heavy mass here and big heavy mass here. They've been able to reduce each quite a bit, so it's much quicker to redirect in the hand, and it makes for a much more comfortable experience. On the whole, it's certainly sharp. Well, pull this off. Let's see how sharp we got. Yep, plenty sharp, and definitely gets the job done. Not too bad a showing for a budget falchion. Let's see what the next one up is. Okay, we have a very similar type from Todd Cutler. This one's got a little bit more flair to it, and slightly more mass. This one has less distal taper than the Swordier, and as a result, I think there's more mass in the pommel to offset that weight out here. So it feels a little slower in the hand, but not too slow. It still responds. It's just not quite as maneuverable. You have to put a little bit more oomph in order to get it moving. Let's see how she cuts. Oh, that was a shallow cut on my part. Let me try again. That cut through the cardboard fine, but let me see if I can cut through a little bit more. So it dragged out the end. I'd really like to give it a better showing to see if we could actually because here's what the first falchion did. Here's what the next falchion did. I'm going to flip her over and see if I can give her a strong cut from my right, since that's probably my stronger cutting side. Huh. That time we went in, but we just tore through it. And the bottom just collapsed out of the box. That's kind of interesting. Let's see what the sharpness is like. Sharpness is still pretty good on the edge, but definitely having a bit more trouble cutting with it. We go across the top. There we go. No problem cutting the top. It might be that this one is just having a little bit more of trouble accelerating because, as mentioned before, it's a longer blade, but it's also a heavier blade. With a little bit of practice, I might be able to figure out how to get it going. Right now, I'm trying to accelerate it, but not in such a way that I overcommit and just push myself into a position I don't want to. And so that's showing up in the report there. Let's see how it gives in the thrust. Thrusts nicely. It is double edged, so it's got an edge on the primary side and an edge on the false edge. It's not super sharp on the false edge, but still gives good point. And overall, pretty handsome. It's comfortable in the hand. I like the way the grip is wrapped, the way that the cross is done. So overall, a fun and nice looking falchion from Todd. Now, I always like to maintain my objectivity, or at least try and maintain my objectivity. That's going to be very difficult when I have this sword here, because I like falchions a lot, and I really like this falchion. So this is the offering from Winter Cutlery. Obviously, this is a completely different price point from the other falchions we've looked at as a custom sword, but this is a Type 3 Northern Italian style falchion, and it's really cool. My poor cardboard box is falling apart, so I'm cutting from this side that collapsed last time when we tried it with the Todd Cutler falchion. Let's see if we've got enough juice left in it to cut with the Winter Cutlery falchion before it goes to bed. Yep, that cut very easily. Let me see if I can cut a little bit deeper. Yeah, even though we lost our footing, she made a very clean cut all the way down and just tore a little bit right here at the edge. It didn't quite make it out there, but again, we have bad footing, so the ground's just collapsing there. Can I cut straight down? Let's see. No, the poor box is completely falling apart. I'll give it a little thrust beforehand. Give it a thrust. Again, a decent thrust. And you can see that this blade is quite a bit thinner out here, so we got more flex, and it doesn't require having quite as, it's got a large pommel, but the pommel doesn't have as much weight as the other ones, although there's more mass perhaps as a result of this crossguard, but it results in a blade that still has plenty of presence, but is a lot more easy to maneuver in the hand than the last one that we looked at. So just a really, really pretty sword that can't get enough of having either in the hand or admiring from a distance. So I don't know that we have any special conclusion, but at least we had the chance to see how some of these swords operated. These are a lot of fun, and it's no surprise because these are some of the swords that I enjoy studying the most. I want to thank in particular the guys from Unsheathed Sword Reviews for lending me this falchion from Todd Cutler. Thanks to Vic and John for letting me have the chance to experiment with this. Obviously, I need to review it formally, so that since you guys have lent it to me for such a long time. Eric Estlund continues to be a good friend of the channel for letting me have the opportunity to look at some of his beautiful swords. So thanks to Eric very much. Hope everyone enjoyed looking at falchions. Take care, guys.